I have the Wi-Fi set up in its own camper
Mm-hmm.
behind a hill, so there's no RF that reaches me at all, and it's on and a Cat 6 internet cable, Ethernet cable connects to my computer.
Yeah, awesome. No, I love that. I actually heard you talk about that in another podcast. I'm like, that's a brilliant idea because I don't have Wi-Fi at my house.
Yeah, it's so much better. For a year I was going to the library and just
Hmm.
get it, and I could handle it for an hour every 2 weeks, which most people wouldn't be able to do everything and online for an hour in 2 weeks. But I
Hmm.
made it work, but it was still, but I'd be a wreck the next day. So this allows me to use it a lot more safely, although it still has some low frequency power fields and I still get a headache from it if I'm on too long. But it's,
Yeah.
so I'm working on figuring out something even better. But for
Yeah.
now, this is working.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely talk on that because I know you have lots of tips and tricks for people that are looking to do something similar. So, well, welcome to the Meat, Body, and Soul podcast. I am, as usual, Jodelle. Some of the biggest concerns I get that people reach out to me for headaches, migraines, sleep issues, weight gain, just digestive distress, anxiety, mineral imbalances, sugar cravings. These are major symptoms, but it may not be what you think because a lot of the people that I talk to are already eating really great. They're already doing some sort of movement that works for them. So, what's the missing piece? That's what we're talking about today. And the person I have on today is someone who I consider an official on what is known as electro-hypersensitivity. And this is something that is not just affecting certain people, it's affecting us all. It's just, quite frankly, a lot of people are not aware of it, and some are. And Julia Lupine is very aware of it. She's an outspoken activist against the unrestricted abuse of wireless radiation, an author of several books, including Under a Rock, an electrosensitive survival guide, and she considers it her mission to educate creative solutions and strategies as to how to live in an EMF-laden world safely. She homesteads and she forages, which I love, for her wild plants with her cute little pack of goats. And Julia, it's a pleasure to have you on after reading your highly, highly informative books and hearing you on other podcasts. I'm very honored to have you on, so welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jodelle.
Yeah. And I want my listeners to hear, I mean, you have an incredible story, but first, for people that have just heard the word EMF and they've heard electro hypersensitivity, I think we got to unpack that a little bit and help them understand that we live in a world that, yeah, you're carrying your little rectangle around. Everybody's got their tablet and their rectangle and their Wi-Fi router in their house, and they have no idea what this is doing to their body because not necessarily feeling this sort of radiation, and yet they are. They just don't realize that they are. So maybe let's talk about what is EMF first and foremost, and then we'll talk about how you can actually be sensitive to it.
Right. Well, EMF is electromagnetic frequency,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the part of the rainbow we don't see. So it's below visible light on the electromagnetic spectrum, and goes all the way down through RF, which is um, like radio, like a radio station, AM and FM, and then below that is the low frequencies like household power.
Mm-hmm.
And every electric field gives off a magnetic field, and the whole thing is called an electromagnetic field.
Mm-hmm.
And the word electrosensitive is actually misleading because all life is electrosensitive.
Mm-hmm.
We evolved on this planet with the natural frequencies, the Schumann resonance of the Earth, and like a few weak cosmic rays from space and everything in between. The magnetic field of the Earth is about a Gauss,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is pretty weak actually, but it has effects. And we evolved in this environment, but now the levels of artificial EMF, which are completely alien to Earth but
Mm-hmm.
still interact with biology, are in the words of Ollie Johansson, the famous researcher who studies EMF issues, he says that the fields are a quintillion times higher than the natural background radiation. That's huge.
Mm.
And actually, there's this radio telescope in Green Bank, West Virginia, that measures the fields. It measures the EMFs coming from space, and they are so weak compared to the artificial EMF that the whole town doesn't allow Wi-Fi and cell phones.
Right.
Um, and just to give people an idea of the difference in what we've done now with the planet compared to how things were 100, 200, or even 50 years ago, it's risen exponentially. And it's especially correlated with the rise in all these new diseases, which
Yeah.
the changing litany of chronic fatigue, mold allergy, Lyme, um, Epstein-Barr, all of these,
Yeah.
POTS is the new one,
Mhm.
all of these things. Um, if, I'm sure if you did a graph, it would line up pretty closely to the rise in artificial EMF.
Mhm.
So, electrosensitive, officially called electro-hypersensitive. Many of us hate this term, by the way. Electromagnetic radiation syndrome is a more accurate term, and
Mhm.
there's people trying to change that. Um, but anyway, we are people who are affected much more than the average person, and we feel it viscerally.
Mhm.
But it behaves sort of like an allergy, and we react much more than other people.
Yeah.
And the industry thinks we're crazy, but we're basically exiled to the most remote, cold, windy, hot, buggy, um, godforsaken places on the earth where the wireless plague hasn't quite spread yet.
Yeah.
And where I live right now, you can get maybe 1 bar of service if you're unlucky, but um, but for the most part, it's one of the few Wi-Fi free zones that hasn't been completely saturated with artificial EMF. But when I was younger, growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, I had all of these modern problems, like various diagnoses from depression to bipolar to I thought I had Lyme for a while,
Mm.
and anxiety, extreme disorientation at times. I would go out in the car and not find my way to work, even though I'd been there 100 times before.
Yeah.
Just really weird stuff, spaciness, but it wasn't consistent. And I could not, I tried different diets, which did help, but not completely.
Mhm.
And it was always like there was this missing piece. And I journaled and really tried to figure it out, and I could not figure it out. And then finally, it came clear to me when I moved to the Moab, Utah area in 2011, and I just started living. I had this dream of living off the land, and I was
Mhm.
camping in the desert and living out of caves. And I realized all my problems went away out there,
Mhm.
but they came back when I came into town. And what really made it clear was using the cell phone, which was an old flip phone at the time. But
Mhm.
I would make a phone call and just get this burning sensation in the right side of my head, which would go away after a while when I turned the phone off.
Yeah.
So I eventually ended up getting rid of the phone, and that was not the end of my problems though, because the whole EMF situation got worse. I started feeling other people's phones and power lines and Wi-Fi. Really didn't feel well unless I was out in the desert away from it all.
Mhm.
And it became, but I was still able to exist for many years, living mostly in the caves and off grid. I traveled around to various campsites. I worked. I did landscaping and gardening on um, just a couple days a month was really enough to sustain me and buy food. I wasn't on food stamps until for a long time, until it basically my health uh, reached crisis level, and I needed um, and I just couldn't work anymore, because even doing gardening outside, there's always a power line or a smart meter or something, and I'd be sick for a couple days after going
Sure.
anywhere near people. It was a discouraging situation.
Mhm.
But luckily, and I go over this whole story in the book, but um, went through phases where people thought I was crazy, and but I knew I wasn't, because these things I felt were so um, obvious,
Right.
like night and day. I kind of compare it to, it's not a sense like seeing or smelling or touch, although some people can hear microwave radiation, and
Mm-hmm.
um, but usually it's more of like something like blood sugar levels or pressure changes. I would relate it to that. It's like, but I get a tingly sensation in my hands and arms that kind of travels up my arm, and then pressure in my head, especially on the right side.
Mm-hmm.
And the sense of dizziness and disorientation that's unique to these exposures. It's like, it's nothing like anxiety or a panic attack, although you can have anxiety or a panic attack when it reaches the point where you got a screaming migraine and you're just trying to get your groceries from town, but you can't remember your own name.
Yeah.
Basically, like, it can reach panic level if you don't train yourself to not panic
Right.
and to just focus and get through the pain and get through the exposure. I've gotten really good at that. But yeah, just learning how to survive with this, I became really good at herbalism.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of saved me throughout the years, because not only did I have something that would help me with the symptoms, but it allowed me to be proactive and not just be a victim. There's like this misconception that we're just these sick people living in a basement surrounded by tinfoil.
Yeah.
It's the reality is not like that at all. Where,
No.
I mean, I wake up and milk goats every day, and I build fences and build barns, and I can actually, I'm actually in perfect health now. I found my own farm in a remote area, and it's really my ideal lifestyle that I was searching for years.
Mm-hmm.
The one problem being is I can't go into town or be around people or try to do anything in life without getting these same symptoms come immediately back.
Yeah.
But um, I just make the best of it, and at least I've got all this public lands around me, so I can take my goats out and go hiking. And as long as I'm careful and avoid the power lines and the bad things, I can um, live a really good life. And so I'm just writing the books and doing these interviews to share my knowledge of what I learned, because I could, if I'd known sooner and reduced my exposure, it may have been, I might have been able to prevent this thresholding event that happened to me. And um, it can reverse in the early stages, or at least not progress further to where you can still um, coexist with civilization and not get to the point where you have to run away and move to a cave.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's incredible. And I hope people listening will get your book because it explains so much more of your story. I mean, there were so many things you've been through and so many different things you tried, even living in a house with no electricity just to like be indoors. But people don't realize that when we're talking about EMF, it's not just like the cell phone everybody's carrying around. It's not just the Wi-Fi router. It's like you can be sensitive to dirty electricity inside a building. You can be sensitive to lights overhead, fluorescent lights that make a buzzing sound. That sound you hear is EMF, And so I want everybody to think about the fact that we live in a modern world. We're connected in all these different ways. We're connected to an electronic grid. So for someone who's sensitive, it's all of these things. And yet, for some of us, like you mentioned, the migraines, there's a ton of people listening to this that go, man, I get migraines every day and I still haven't figured out why. I want them to hear stuff like this because what if it's as simple as turning off your Wi Fi router? What if it's as simple as only using your phones for text and calls for communication purposes only? What if it's as simple as unplugging a lot of the electronics in your home so that they're not always buzzing around you, or getting full spectrum incandescent lights instead of, halogen and LED and fluorescent lights in their home. There's all kinds of things people can do, but it's not just about diet and exercise. You could be having these symptoms because you haven't addressed the thing right underneath your nose, which is usually some sort of little rectangular device. So that's why I wanted them to hear from you. So just so they're aware, that's electromagnetic radiation is everywhere, even coming from space now. There's satellites in space that are bombarding us with electricity. There's what they call non-ionizing radiation and there's ionizing. So can you explain that to the listeners, the difference between the two of those?
Right. So, industry tells us that the non ionizing is completely safe and that ionizing is cancerous, but that's totally bogus. I
Yes.
mean, X rays are ionizing, and they initially told us that was completely safe
Right.
until enough pregnant women complained that was, and they finally figured out that X-rays were not really safe, and you shouldn't
Mhm.
just put them in the machine at the shoe store to measure your shoe size or whatever, and
Right.
use it as a party trick. Just use it for getting an X-ray at the dentist, situations where you really need it,
Yeah.
and that so ionizing radiation is like cosmic rays from space and gamma rays or
Hmm.
radiation from an atomic bomb. Like that is it is the most dangerous kind, but what it does is it rips the electron off of the atom. But the
Hmm.
non-ionizing, it's a lower frequency, it's the megahertz and the gigahertz and all that, everything down to low frequency 60 hertz um, power in your house
Right.
and below that.
Hmm.
Non-ionizing has been shown in numerous studies spanning back decades that it has biological effects too. It affects the ion channels in the body and the ions in the cell and the cell membrane. It can rip the calcium ion off the cell membrane, which has all kinds of effects in the body and has
Right.
been linked to all these diseases of civilization.
Hmm.
And the only reason that the official narrative is that non-ionizing is safe is that big big tech, the telecom industry and
Hmm.
its trade associations has billions of dollars. It's like the tobacco industry times 100,
Right.
and they can afford to pay scientists to get the results they want. When there's that much money at stake, they'll pay the scientists. They'll take money to get the results they want, or they'll
Yeah.
publish um, if they publish studies that show effects, they might lose their job
Hmm.
or get shamed in various ways. And I went into all that, and your cell phone is not safe,
Hmm.
and did kind of an expose of the telecom industry and the trade associations and um, how they interact with scientists to get the results they want and manipulate mass opinion. And when there's something so ubiquitous in our society as a cell phone, it I mean, we're all addicted to them. I like to say I'm not, but I check Facebook too. I don't have a cell phone, but I have a laptop, and I do find it a bit addicting if I'm not careful.
Sure.
And but the masses who I can't imagine having that in my pocket. I'd rather have
No.
my pack of cigarettes back, which is a stupid habit I used to have. That's probably
Right.
less harmful than this, but
Right.
um,
Absolutely.
and but anyway, and it's funny. I noticed you might have noticed the smoking rate's gone down. I don't see young people smoking as much
No.
anymore, which is
Yeah.
nice. But I think they've just replaced it with something else the same size in their
Yeah.
pocket that
Hmm.
they can check when they have a little social anxiety or they need their binky. Um, so, um, yeah, so this is highly addictive
Hmm.
physically and psychologically to get that dopamine hit. It's like more addictive than gambling or cigarettes or um, probably any other major thing that people get addicted to.
Hmm.
So people are predisposed to want to think it's safe. And then the studies come out that are paid for by the industry that assure us that it's safe. So people are like, um, that's all the confirmation they need. So if you tell them you're electrosensitive, what your average person will do is pull out the smartphone and pull up the Wikipedia
Right.
article on electrosensitivity that says it's psychosomatic and something called the nocebo effect,
Hmm.
and they'll try to show me that and tell me that what I'm going through isn't real, but but I know a few things about that Wikipedia article. It was written by a man named James Rubin. I did a deep dive on him in my newest book, Electrocensorship.
Mhm.
And Mr. Rubin, he's not a doctor, he's not a scientist, he's a crowd control psychologist.
Mhm.
His job is to find out who basically works for a government organization in England, and his job is to figure out how people behave um, in like dangerous scenarios, like pandemics or natural disasters. He studies how people behave and how to keep them from panicking. Um, so it's like, why would you have a crowd control psychologist write an article on a medical condition?
Mhm.
That's her first red flag. And he did these studies with King's College of London, where
Mhm.
he studied so-called electrosensitive people who weren't really people like me who live out in the wilderness and have discern like really good discerning abilities to feel the fields. He
Mhm.
just puts an ad in the newspaper saying, "Hey, have you had? Do you get headaches from your cell phone? Do you want to be a part of this study?" So these people sign up for the study, and they're probably people living in England who maybe get a headache from their cell phone once in a while, but they're living in a city, so their discerning abilities probably aren't that good. They're probably
Mhm.
not severe cases anyway. But what Mr. Rubin does is he brings them to his office, which is not shielded, by the way. The background radiation, who knows what it is? He didn't say that in his study. And he puts this headset device on them where it's either in sham mode or it's emitting a wireless signal simulating a cell phone exposure.
Mhm.
And he has them guess whether it's on or off. So they guess right, actually more often than the controls do.
Mhm.
Um, but they still don't guess right that often. They tend to think it's on when it isn't, um, uh, a lot of the time. So I read the actual scientific paper of this study, which I recommend that other people do too. And I saw a lot of things that um, made me think that it was not really done using the scientific method and should probably be thrown out. That for the biggest thing was that the device itself was it was still on when it was off, so they actually guessed right, but it was just putting off a weak magnetic field, and and still connected to whatever switch turned it on and off. So it would be probably about the equivalent of having this a cell phone in airplane mode strapped to your head, which that would give me a major headache if I,
Mhm.
but not as bad as if it was transmitting. But
Right.
when you're continually zapping people like this, they lose their discriminatory ability somewhat. And I actually wrote to Mr. Rubin in our conversation. I put I um, put it in my new book, but he basically confirmed he's not a doctor and he didn't measure the background radiation um, and he couldn't tell me if the device was transmitting in sham mode. So yeah, this study should be thrown out. It shouldn't be the first thing that a person looks up on the Wikipedia article
Right.
about our condition. There's thousands of people worldwide who are suffering from this, and it's really sad. They write to me all the time saying, "Where can I go? What can I do?" And I
Mm.
don't know what to tell them. There's not a lot of places left, and not everyone wants to live in a cave out in the most godforsaken reaches of the desert. I actually sometimes miss it myself. It was a simpler life. And now I've got these goats screaming at me all the time.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, people have health problems too. I was luckily in really good shape and in my early 30s when this happened to me. And it brought me to the point of near death. I mean, I had other problems going on at the time, gallbladder and candida, but I
Mhm.
wasn't able to get medical treatment because I'd walk into a hospital and have a seizure, like from the
Yeah.
EMF. So I just had to be my own doctor and figure it out myself. And luckily, I have got to the point where um, I really am fine. But I go into town and the symptoms come back.
Ugh. Yeah, and really no one is safe. No one can avoid being exposed anymore because with this extensive use of 5G and these we already had 2G, 3G, 4G, and now 5G. These are all towers that they're putting up. So no matter where you live, like you said, you even get one bar, there's still some amounts everywhere we go. So it's unavoidable, and yet we can live in the world safely, which we're going to get to because you've got tips and tricks for how people can have Wi-Fi safely. You've got tips and tricks for even clothing. I love your piece on clothing in your book. That was so huge. And going back to what you said about it's not recognized in the medical, people just think it's woo when you say electrohypersensitivity. I did some digging, and there's something that's a real medical diagnosis called idiopathic environmental intolerance, which it's something that people could go to their doctor and say, if you need a code to get me some sort of testing, can you use this code, this idiopathic environmental intolerance? And sometimes insurances will take care of like if they need testing for something like that. So I found that interesting that there is something in the literature, but nobody's talking about that. Some people call it Wi-Fi sickness, EMF sickness. Wi-Fi allergies is another one. Like you mentioned, it is kind of like an allergy because a lot of the things that people are experiencing with allergies even and with things like histamine reactions and like you mentioned mold exposure, if somebody has mold in their body and they're daily sitting by a Wi-Fi router, the mold spores get very aggravated and they will release more mycotoxins and make somebody sicker. The same with Lyme or any of these other co-infections like the Epstein-Barr you mentioned. All of that can make people worse when they're chronically making the body produce more cytokines, more mycotoxins, more yeast or fungus or overgrowth of any kind because of how aggravated the body is being exposed to this non-native EMF. Yes?
Exactly. There's a synergy, we could call it, between, I think, the main causes of all these also chemicals, especially glyphosate, but other
Mm,
toxic chemicals. And these things work together. There's actually been researchers who have tried to find a way to get a chemical into the brain of the rat when they're studying it for cancer effects. And they'll find that blasting it with EMF will make the chemicals cross the blood-brain barrier. And
wow.
that's terrifying. So
Yeah.
these things work together. Also, and I think that people put too much emphasis on parasites, bacteria, viruses, all
Yeah.
that because it's really it's the terrain. So it's the
Hmm.
chemical and electromagnetic environment that allows the pathogens to grow. If you're in a pristine environment, the microbiome will just revert back to its healthy, normal state. Um, but if you're being blasted by frequencies, it's been shown in experiments that pathogenic bacteria or regular bacteria will change into pathogenic bacteria
Hmm.
just through the introduction of EMF. Um, and then as far as the idiopathic environmental intolerance, it is an official diagnosis. Of course, it's the only disability that comes with no rights. You still can't tell your neighbor to stop the Wi-Fi signal that's coming into your house
No
from
kidding.
their house because you have a disability. There isn't public access for us if there's Wi-Fi at the anywhere in town,
Hmm.
or you have to go to accomplish basic life things like getting groceries, or
Yeah.
you're still exposed to that. You have no protection, but it
Hmm.
is an official diagnosis. So I recommend people, if they feel like arguing with a doctor, to go that route. I unfortunately didn't know I've tried arguing with the doctor before, but I didn't know the official diagnosis code. That might have helped, but I was arguing with this doctor in Vermont because I needed a doctor's note to be able to get food stamps.
Hmm.
And I was telling them my symptoms and that I had Wi-Fi allergy and that I couldn't work because of it. And I mean, I was like basically on the verge of a seizure in the doctor's office while I was telling them this, but they still didn't believe me because I looked fine. Um, so um, what I ended up doing was they told me that if I took medication, that they would take me seriously and still give me the food stamps. So I just got the prescription for the medication. Of course, I didn't take it because that's not the solution. The solution
Right.
is staying away from the artificial fields to begin with.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it can make you want to hit your head against the wall. It's the most frustrating thing, um, dealing with not only with medical professionals but with friends and family who think that you're psychosomatic. So I've just had to cultivate this attitude of not freaking out and
Mhm.
just describing my symptoms objectively and
Mhm.
being calm about it, even if somebody messes up once in a while and leaves their phone on around me and I get a headache. Don't hold it against them and don't
Mhm.
be angry. But maybe don't hang out with that person if they continue to do that. But most people are pretty cool about it. But it really helps that I'm a property owner now
Mhm.
and appear to have it together and be doing well in life versus living out of a cave in a backpack with a backpack. And um, although just in general, it helps if you keep a calm tone of voice and don't get hysterical over it
Yeah.
because that's not going to help with people who are already predisposed to think you're crazy.
Right.
Um,
So if
and
people are listening to this and they're going, okay, I wonder if I could have if this issue that I've been having for a long time, since I can't seem to find an answer to it, could this be something that I'm dealing with? So maybe let's break down some of the top symptoms that people might want to recognize are not having to do with like, yeah, you might not be eating the best diet or you're not moving enough. Like let's lay out some symptoms so they go, wow, I have that and I have that. And maybe I do have some sensitivity to EMF and Wi-Fi.
for sure. Well, headache and migraine are two of the main ones. And then also like a weird tingling feeling in the nerves,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the finger. Like I notice it when I hold the mouse of the computer.
Yeah.
So and if a person's actually holding a device like a phone and they get a tingling in that hand, that's a pretty good sign. But there are so many different symptoms. Dizziness is a big one. Heart
Mm-hmm.
palpitations is one.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Insomnia is a major one, and then weird mood things and panic attacks and sudden outbursts of anger are another one. And I mean, these are all symptoms that are common and can have other causes, but when it fits a certain symptom picture, like if you notice it after, if you notice these problems during a phone call, for example, or
Mm-hmm.
near a Wi-Fi router or going into a specific store, like you just may want to pay attention and track your exposures over time and of course get a meter too, which I'll talk about later. But I get a weird twitching in my right eye is a
Mm-hmm.
specific thing to the exposures. Um, and certain pains in my head, like in the same spots on the right side, were something that I dealt with. Also, dizziness is a major one. Disorientation, like I just
Mm-hmm.
get lost, and that
Yeah.
doesn't happen out here. I can go for a hike and not get lost.
Yeah.
When I first learned to drive, oh boy, like I'd be across town and
Oh
not
no.
even realize it. What else? Restless legs syndrome is
Yeah.
probably a thing. Uh, yeah, tinnitus is a major one for some people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Seizures in the worst case scenario, and vision changes, even stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, so these symptoms, and also this is two-thirds more common. Two-thirds of known cases of electrosensitivity are female, although
Mm-hmm.
I think it's underdiagnosed in males because they might not want to admit to it.
Right.
Um, but but it can really happen to anyone. But it happens a lot to people in the tech industry because
Mm.
they're exposed to so much of it.
Yeah.
But it also tends to happen to intelligent, introverted, although you can be extroverted too, but intelligent, athletic, otherwise healthy people. It happens to a lot, and also, um, interesting fact: almost all the people I know who have this are either a writer or an artist or musician, like across the board. We're
Mm.
all creative people, which is great because I think the real way to spend to get the message across is through art and writing and music. Um,
Yeah.
'Cause that's more interesting than just a science book.
I love that you mentioned the heart palpitations because I can't tell you how many people that I hear daily, not just clients, but like friends and family and people going into the hospital for heart palpitations. And I never heard so much of this until 5G was rolled out. And I really feel like if you think about where people are putting their cell phone, like guys in particular, they put it in their shirt pocket that's very close to your heart, or you're holding it and texting and you're very close to your heart. Digestive issues are another one because people are laying on the couch and they've got their tablet or their phone right on their abdomen and they wonder, why do I have all this heartburn and GERD and digestive bloating and I can't, and I'm constipated, and like you're radiating your internal organs. And I just want people to think about that. Like what we're doing to our body is not native to our body. Like 40 years ago, I was a little girl because I'm 45, and I didn't have a device other than watching TV once in a while at night with my family, and it was on one of those big giant boxes that didn't have blue light. It was probably just some old bulb inside the back of the TV. And otherwise, we were outside, we were riding bikes, we were climbing trees, we were in nature, and this is what people don't do anymore. They're always on some sort of a little rectangle and they wonder why they don't feel good. And what about things like chronic fatigue? Everybody's tired. And you mentioned POTS. That's a huge one that I'm hearing all the time from people. And so I really feel like some of the most common things that is affecting the majority of individuals could be mitigated if they'll listen to somebody like you and they'll look at like, could this be my environment, not necessarily the food that I'm eating? Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, the heart palpitations, the hospitals, if it is from EMF, the hospital's the last place you want to go.
Right. Because of all the towers
Oh,
on top
yeah,
of it.
it's just such. I mean, I talk about it in Under a Rock, but I had this seizure event at the hospital, and
Yeah.
I wasn't even there for. I was there to get. I was having digestive problems, and that's why I went. And they just sent me over to the hospital to get some blood work, and I had and we, there was this little wireless device we had to have next to us that would blink when it was our turn to go get
Hmm.
checked out. And by the time the doctor was able to see me, I was like, my vision was going whiting out and I was shaking uncontrollably. And
Yeah.
I just ran outside and had a seizure, basically this weird event. It, on and on the ground, I laid down and
Mm.
spasmed for a while, and then it went away.
Yeah.
And things were not the same the next day. I was previously able to go in the house and make coffee and take a shower or whatever. And after that day, I was not able to go in a house anymore without immediate inflammation across my entire body, eye
Yeah.
twitching. I couldn't go to the fridge to get food without getting an instant migraine, actually.
Hmm.
Um, and this is an extreme case. It's these thresholding events happen,
Hmm.
and it's like it ups the intensity of it
Yeah.
immediately. But for most people, it took a long time to get to that point. I had other thresholding events before that. One was when I climbed a cell tower, which was really stupid of me. But at the time, I thought still part of me still thought it was in my mind, and I wanted to face my fears and also I was following a friend. I was trying to convince him I wasn't crazy and wasn't afraid
Mm.
of this, but that was a big mistake because things changed after that, and I didn't feel right for about a week, just dizzy, disoriented, and it definitely upped my sensitivity level. So that's why I write the books, is to convince people don't do something stupid like that, and also just try to. Most of our um, exposure actually comes from personal wireless use, not from
Yeah.
the towers. There's things we can control and there's things we can't control,
Right.
or at least that it's hard to control. But you can stop using a cell phone and that will drastically reduce your exposure levels. Hardwire instead of using Wi-Fi, that will drastically reduce it too. And
Hmm.
so that's why I recommend the meter, because you can pinpoint where the most dangerous levels are in your personal environment and then reduce exposure accordingly, either by turning things off or sometimes just moving a bed away from a smart meter or
Right.
away from a refrigerator or whatever can drastically reduce the exposure levels. Um, but yeah, back to the um, heart palpitations. There was a study by the researcher Magda Habas where
Mhm.
she's done several of these studies, but she takes a cordless phone and the subjects in the room with the cordless phone, and it's either plugged in or it isn't, and they can't tell if it's plugged in or not. And they measure the blood pressure and heart rate. And she found that in 40% of the study participants, the heart rate doubled and they had
Mm.
these tachycardia events from a cordless phone. And by the way, not all of these people were even extreme electrosensitive. Some There were
Mhm.
just people who some of them were and some of them weren't, but they were just people she got to volunteer for this experiment. And it's still 40% of people were drastically affected by this. That's terrifying. So don't think your cordless phone is safe. It's actually more dangerous than a cell phone. It's using the same frequencies, except that it's always emitting, not
Yeah.
just in call mode. But an old landline phone, those are good, and
Hmm.
you can still get them, although it's not um, possible in all areas. I actually had to get Wi-Fi myself. I mean, I didn't have to. I could have gone to the library, which I did for a year. And now, just for the listeners, just imagine what it's like to do all of your banking and personal communications and everything you have to do online in 1 hour every 2 weeks at the library. That's what I
Hmm.
did for a
Hmm.
year. And I also did research to write a book. I would just click and save the
Yeah.
research papers, and I wrote a whole book this way. But eventually, that became intolerable. And also, my mom came for a visit, and she said, "I really miss talking to my daughter. I haven't seen you or spoken to you in a year.
Oh.
And can you please just get Wi-Fi so I can talk to you?" And you don't say no to mom.
Right.
So we had the local. So I have Wi-Fi that's almost always off. I go on a couple times a week, and it's in its own camper away from the living area,
Hmm.
behind a dirt berm. So I'm actually getting 0 RF where I'm sitting right now. Um, and there's a long Ethernet cord that connects the Wi-Fi to my computer,
Hmm.
and this whole thing is only on while in use. And I still, to be honest, have guilt about it because I don't want to do anything to support Wi-Fi, and
Right.
it still is, because the more subscribers there are, the more output the tower will have. But
Mhm.
under the circumstances, I just can't handle going to the library.
Yeah.
We deserve to live.
Yeah.
But eventually, the solution would be hardwired fiber optic, which I hope to do one day. But
Hmm.
um, it's well, I live in a camper. The FCC allows unrestricted use of as much Wi-Fi and wireless radiation as you want. But if you get a landline, they want you to have an official address, which I don't because I live in a camper and have no money. Um,
Hmm.
so this is what works for me for now. But definitely check into landline options first because that's safest. But if you don't have that option, you can do what I do with the Wi-Fi and the Cat 6 cord and um, really reduce exposure levels and just. But until then, even if you aren't willing to go to that step, um, to go that far, just turn off the Wi-Fi at night and see
Yeah.
what that does,
Yeah.
and move it out of your bedroom and turn the cell phone and the computer on airplane mode. Just doing those steps can often have really amazing results. But for chronic cases of people who are listening to this podcast, probably searching for answers, like you may want to go further than that. And um, so I'd recommend next time someone is tempted to buy some expensive new supplement,
Mhm.
instead of doing that, spend the $100 or $150 on a meter, such
Yeah.
as the Safe and Sound Pro is a good beginner level meter.
Hmm.
Cornet is a good one. Um, and just figure out the highest levels of EMF in your own personal environment and work from there.
Yeah, I love that. I have 2 meters myself that I've like done exactly that, gone through my home and figured out what are the safest areas and what I need to be careful of. I'm not super sensitive to regular, like the grid being on electricity, but I am one that has to, my cell phone has to be off when I'm not using it. I don't have Wi-Fi, but if I am around it, it's for a very short amount of time because I definitely get affected by it. And actually, what's funny is Bluetooth is the worst for me. Bluetooth just buries me alive. Like I will get a
It's
headache
awful.
within 20 minutes of being around a Bluetooth device, I'm just a wreck. And it's funny because I can almost withstand Wi-Fi more than Bluetooth. So we'll definitely have to talk about that in a second. But it makes it to where I love what you're doing. Like for the sake of your mom and communication, you're in the modern world, but you're only using it for the purpose of that. You're keeping a balance about it. And I think that's what people have to do. We have to communicate. And yes, our loved ones need us. Our job might require some sort of connection. And so people don't have to go, as you say, live under a rock if their lifestyle just isn't conducive to that, or you're married to somebody like I am who thinks that I'm crazy because I turn my cell phone off and he can't ever get a hold of me. But the the matter the max the sorry the matter of fact is that we need to do the best we can with the situation that we're in. And like you said, if that's just the fact of somebody turning off their Wi-Fi at night, start there. If it's just the fact of like, okay, I'm only going to use my cell phone for text and calls. I'm not going to numb out on Facebook scrolling. I'm not going to, use all these other game apps and stuff like that. Okay, start there because it will make a difference. And I always tell people, what if? Like, what if you do these things and you no longer get headaches, you no longer get migraines, you no longer have excess weight creeping on your body because you're eliciting a cortisol reaction from all of the stress of the EMF? What if this is the missing link, but you'll never know unless people move forward and go, okay, I want to do everything that's natural. And obviously, this isn't natural. So it's time for me to start thinking about, does my refrigerator have Wi-Fi? Am I driving an electric car where I'm sitting on top of this compound that's radiating my backside the whole time I'm driving my car? I loved what you said in your book, Your Cell Phone is Not Safe, that the the dangerous level of mobile phone radiation and any sort of radiation actually quadruples, this is being in their back pocket, actually quadruples their people's risk for colon cancer, for colorectal cancer, quadruples their risk by carrying their cell phone in their back pocket. Nobody's thinking about that. And so that's why I want to talk about it. It's very important. Now, you heard me talk about Bluetooth devices. What do you know about that? Like, why am I having such an issue with Bluetooth devices that I'm around that people have? I don't have any because I can't stand them. I won't ever wear AirPods. I won't ever wear some sort of watch that emits to my phone or something like that. But why is that so dangerous?
Yeah, I mean it's basically the same frequency range as the cell phone,
Hmm.
but probably a slightly different frequency. I believe it's in the megahertz
Hmm.
generally, the Bluetooth. And yeah, it'll only um reach it's they generally don't reach very far, but it feels really strong
Mm.
where it is. It affects me stronger than the actual cell phone too.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I don't know specifically about the actual differences, except that every frequency and a frequency it's the cycles per second.
Yeah.
So megahertz, it's cycling millions of times per second. Um, and every specific frequency has potentially a different biological effect, but nobody's studying it.
Right.
And these things, it would be hard to even study. But
Mhm.
yeah, it could be that it's affecting our neurology in slightly different ways than the typical call mode of the cell phone. But
Yeah.
who knows? Just um, a very avoidable source, though. We don't need it. It's
Yeah.
only convenient. I mean, um, yeah, like those speakers that plug into the cell phone to play the wireless speakers. They use a Bluetooth frequency, and
Hmm.
that's completely unnecessary. You could just plug it into the cell phone
Right.
and not have it radiate.
Yeah.
But like everything has to be wireless, and it's just
Mhm.
dumb and totally avoidable.
Yeah, my husband recently bought a smoker and he had to get one that was like top of the line. I'm like, can you find one without Wi-Fi and Bluetooth? And he's like, well, they all have that. And so
Yeah,
he promised me that he would only plug it in when he's using it and then he unplugs it. And because I won't even like just turn it off. I said, I want it unplugged. Like I don't want it emitting any sort of anything, searching for something. Because like you said, a megahertz is like hundreds and thousands of times per minute or second or whatever it is, it's pinging to some sort of connection, which means it's pinging through your 70% water body that's highly conductive. If you're in any realm of that space, a cell phone on your body pings to the local tower at least 900 times per minute. So imagine sticking your head in a microwave oven for a full minute and telling me that's not going to dehydrate you, it's not going to cause issues, it's not going to give you a headache, you know. So if people would think about that, these constant pinging to some sort of huge electro field is not going to put you in any state of wellness. And there's so many people that listen to this podcast that are looking to optimize their wellness. Okay, forget about what you're eating. Take your cell phone out of your pocket and turn it off, and maybe even smash it with a rock like you did. Now, we've talked the doom and gloom side of things for a long time. I want to give people some tips. And one of them was this great idea about I love that you found a place for your Wi Fi router. So it wasn't in your home, it was 300 feet from you behind a hill. So you're really, when you do have it on, it's very reasonable connected to a Cat 6 cable that you're not going to get hardly any radiation from it. I love that. And then you mentioned the fiber optics. That's something that people don't even know is out there. You actually just have to Google it and see if it's available in your area. But what else? Is there anything else that can help people, like hardwire their system?
yeah. And I'd recommend, if you can, find an EMF consultant to do
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
They'll know a lot more than your average electrician. But there might not be one in your area, but you can search. But yeah, also just so I just try to interact with electricity as minimally as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I charge devices. I use an inverter with AC power to charge this laptop or my headlamp batteries or power tools or whatever. But the
Mm-hmm.
inverter, I have a Cat 6 cord connected to a switch 100 feet away from the inverter. So I just press the button on the switch and it sends the signal over to the cord that turns on the inverter. And this is on a solar system with solar
Mm-hmm.
panels, and that charges my devices, and then it goes off as soon as it's not needed. I've at times used that system to run a vacuum cleaner if I had a really gross mess in my camper
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. But that does give me a headache, so I don't do it often. Um, but for the most part, I try to not interact with AC power much at all. The AC is an unnatural, it's what creates the hertz, the cycles per second. A
Yeah.
DC power doesn't cycle like that, and it's a more natural type of electricity that's
Mm-hmm.
generally considered safe for electrosensitive people. It's more subtle than that, but um, generally it's okay. And so I actually have a DC powered refrigerator in my
Nice.
shed. It's
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. It doesn't give me a headache at all. And I still wouldn't want to sleep next to it, but um, I've so far never had a problem with it. You can also have DC powered lights. I choose to not have any electricity at all to my camper where I live. I just use a headlamp on batteries or sometimes candles.
Mm-hmm.
But I could probably have lights safely. I just don't care. I think it's annoying and I sleep better without artificial lights. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, and for most people, like, yeah, just the fewer devices we use, it's better for the planet, better for you, um, and even solar panels, they use massive amounts of energy to create them. It's not
Mm-hmm.
really a viable solution, but for an off-grid situation, I would still recommend the solar
Mm-hmm.
because you're not connected to the grid and getting all the dirty electricity.
Yeah.
But just but just for the listeners, like anything that goes through an inverter and converts DC to AC is never going to be safe without side effects if
Yeah.
you're sensitive to these things. So just, yeah, tread lightly. And remember, this is all artificial and we're all a big experiment. Um, so just never assume that it's safe. But drastic, yeah, like personal use of um, cell phones and Wi-Fi and other um, EMF emitting devices like that are one of the easier steps you can take to really make a huge difference in your life.
Yeah. And you mentioned the herbs, like you did some herbs to help you get through times when you were exposed. What are some of your favorite plant medicines that you love to like that keep your body going?
Well, I tell people first, medicinal mushrooms
Hmm.
such as reishi and lion's mane are two of the best ones, and maitake is a good one,
Hmm.
chaga, and they boost the body's immune system. And just there's so many benefits to mushrooms. We could do
Hmm.
a whole podcast on it,
Yeah.
but anyway, that's yeah. Cordyceps is another good one for oxygen intake.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, a good medicinal mushroom blend, and you don't need like 50 of them. Just like three or four mushrooms is enough for a blend, or even one.
Yeah.
Um, but take it every day consistently, and it can have amazing benefits. But then also adaptogenic herbs. So an adaptogen is something that boosts the body's resistance to stress.
Hmm.
So one I'm using a lot lately is eleuthero. It's also
Yeah.
called Siberian ginseng.
Hmm.
And then cat's claw is another favorite. Schisandra berry I've been
Hmm.
using a lot lately. Turmeric's great. Ginger. And so just find a few adaptogens that you like, or even just one, and make a tea out of it and drink it every day. And that can really help the body's resistance to stressors of all kinds. But don't use it as an excuse for not reducing exposure, because um, it, it can increase your resistance to EMF. But over time, if you continue to do the same exposure levels and you're sensitive to these things, then no amount of herbs is going to stop that. But they can really help the recovery time. So I do a good adaptogenic blend every day, and you just the ones I had that I mentioned, the cat's claw, the eleuthero, the schisandra, the ginger. I just boil them all together for about 10 or 15 minutes in a pot on the stove and drink that throughout the day.
Hmm.
That's a pretty easy, low cost remedy that you can use. Now, for severe cases, there's this tincture. It's by Green Dragon Botanicals.
Okay.
It's called, they're out of Brattleboro, Vermont, and they
Hmm.
do mail orders, but it's called the LB Core Protocol. LB stands for Lyme borealis. And it's a Lyme disease tincture. I've seen it actually cure Lyme in early, so like when a person had the bullseye rash, and I gave this to him. He said his Lyme went away and never came back within a
Wow.
couple months of taking this tincture. It's probably the best herbal form, and I'm not associated with them, by the way, but
Yeah.
they're probably the best herbal formula, in my opinion, ever created. And I don't even think I have Lyme, but I did think I had it, and I started researching the herbs.
Hmm.
And I found that the herbs for Lyme are identical with what helps support the body with, when you're dealing with electromagnetic poisoning. And
Wow.
I think that's really interesting line of research I've been working on, but it's there's a major crossover. So you can just get study Lyme and herbs for Lyme, but just substitute EMF for spirochetes,
Hmm.
and the same herbs work. So this formula, it's Japanese knotweed, which is a hated invasive plant
Yeah.
and wonderful medicine. And then the same cat's claw that I was talking about that you can use as a tea, it's in this tincture. Then another one called andrographis.
Yeah.
That's an anti-parasitic herb, very bitter, disgusting tasting. And then dandelion and sarsaparilla. It's a blend of these five herbs. It's expensive and it tastes awful. And it I found that it really helps with boosting recovery time for me. I took a bunch today before going on the computer. And the herb cross the blood brain barrier and reduce swelling and edema and some of these neurological symptoms associated with EMF. So, and I just kind of figured out this connection myself. To my knowledge, I don't know anyone who's even used this protocol, but I'm trying to spread the word about it because I'm curious to see if it'll help other people.
Yeah.
And I think it will. But again, nothing is, and by the way, it doesn't make me stop feeling it. I still feel it just as much. I just recover faster.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, anyway, I thought that I would share that with your listeners because it might help a lot.
Yeah. Say the name of that again, because I haven't heard of that company.
Yeah, so Green Dragon Botanicals,
Okay.
and this particular form, and they have a lot of wonderful tinctures on there. And the book Healing Lyme, he also sells that on his website,
Hmm.
by the great herbalist Stephen Herod Buhner. Um, but anyway, yeah, the LB Core Protocol
Great.
tincture
Yeah,
is
I'll be sure to put that
fantastic.
in the show notes for people. I love sarsaparilla for the gallbladder too. And you mentioned you had some gallbladder issues. So you're doing yourself a twofold. You're actually like helping your gallbladder and protecting yourself from EMF. But it's really important what you said that people don't just rely on, let me take these tinctures and go to work around all my Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and cell phone stuff. Like you really want to like ask yourself, hard and fast question of like where can I mitigate some of this, where can I get this out of my life if I do have to work in an environment that requires me to use Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. When I'm at home, can I separate myself from that and not use that and give my body a safe place to recover? I'll do podcasts like this and then I immediately go in my cold tub, my little DIY stock tank that's like a metal tub full of water, and I want to get some of that negative charge out. And it always makes me feel better after I get off a device to go do that. So if people do have to be on some sort of, electronic substance of whatever it is, find a way to have downtime, find a way to have device free time and let your body have some recovery. Like what you're doing right now, you're grounding while you're on this podcast. So that's really important. That's something else you talk about in your book. You're a big fan of grounding, huh?
Yes, and really low tech solutions like the ground doesn't
Mhm.
cost you anything, and
Right.
you walk barefoot on the ground. And I've been walking barefoot for years. I
Me
hike
too.
barefoot.
Yeah.
The only place I don't go barefoot is in the city, just not because of broken glass, but just because it's gross. There might be
Yeah.
pest or something. I used to go barefoot in the cities though, but anyway, so yeah, so like grounding, leather clothing is great. It
Yeah.
actually you can measure a major reduction in EMF, um, just by putting your meter under the leather coat and measuring there, as
Hmm.
opposed to not with the leather. I It reduces it a lot, the higher frequency stuff. So
Hmm.
leather, wool, linen's another good one. All natural materials like that work really well.
Yeah.
Um, and then as far, I probably should talk about harmonizers,
Yeah.
and pendants and stickers that you put on your cell phone and all of that. It's
Hmm.
snake oil. Don't waste your money. Buy an EMF meter instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Graham Stetzer meters are another thing entirely. They reduce dirty electricity in the home,
Hmm.
and they do work, but uh, if you're using AC power, it's um, still may be problematic. I tried a couple Graham Stetzer meters in the house I was living in, and I didn't have a meter to test it at the time, but I felt like there was no effect. But it was a big house, and I only had two of these devices. So
Hmm.
yeah, do your own research on that. But as far as the woo woo devices like the harmonizers and all of that stuff, it's yeah, basically snake oil, and just don't waste your money on them.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. The only thing I found that actually does move a little bit of a needle for me is just the stone shungite. Like if I have shungite somewhere on my body, I have felt a little bit of it, like where I can withstand it maybe a little bit longer, I guess would be the best way to describe it. Oh, you got yours on too. I have mine on too.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like I felt like there's a slight effect with it,
Yeah,
nothing like they claim it does,
right.
but I think that well, any a crystal like that will give up a slight piezoelectric negative charge, so it could potentially have biological effects, but it's still um you know, I feel good when I wear them. It's still no real solution, but
Yes,
it's
exactly.
not expensive, and you know, it's not much trouble to just put on a bracelet.
Right.
I also actually made shungite paint. I painted my camper with it.
Oh, good
Um,
idea.
but I couldn't really tell, since there's not much RF here to begin with, I couldn't tell if there was a measurable effect, although I do get a signal still if the UPS truck drives by. So it's obviously not blocking everything, but I think it would work as a shielding paint. I'd much rather use that than any kind of metal shielding paint, which can
Yeah.
be problematic. But for a low cost solution, that, and of course it makes your walls black, so you have to paint over it. Um, but that could have potential effects. But there's no miracle thing. It's just all um, different things that you can do to boost your own resilience and help mitigate the environment.
Yeah, distance is really your friend and time away is really your friend. So I love that those are the biggest proponents that you're advocating for too. And I really loved learning in your book about leather. I had no idea because I've talked to several different shielding companies and people that make shielding fabrics, and I feel like they help a little bit, but when you wrote what you did about leather, I'm like, that makes so much sense because if I want to wear leather bottom shoes, I always feel like I'm definitely grounded. So it makes sense that a leather clothing would actually help too, but I never thought about that. So I'm going to invest in a lot more leather.
Yeah, like it makes you look cool, and
Right.
it yeah, and there's no potential downside. Like
No.
the silver line clothing, like same, like I found it has some beneficial effects. Could
Mhm.
potentially make it worse with the near field exposures. Like if you're using a cell phone and it while wearing the silver, like it could potentially conduct it. It won't block a magnetic field either. It's
Mhm.
just do your own experiments, but
Yeah.
the leather and natural clothing will have nothing but beneficial effects.
Yeah. And there's the word I think you used in your book, attenuate, which means slow
Yeah.
down and maybe less waves. And any less exposure is better for our body. So if these compounds, the linen, the wool, the leather are attenuating the frequencies, then why not? You know, it's just a little less harm on your body. So I really appreciate that you put that in there because not a lot of people are talking about that. There's all these shielding things, and I have tested different like blankets or, leggings or whatever, and I've put my meter behind them, and I got some like diminishing, like some attenuation. But at the same time, it's like this is not the answer. The answer is to not keep doing what you're doing and just put on this clothing. You really do have to say, well, how much of my life is spent on a device? And is that natural for humans? Or should we be out with goats and should we be out foraging and should we be out hiking in nature and experiencing the beauty of creation and getting sunlight and grounding? You know, like this is common sense, but it seems like we live in a world where common sense died. Nobody knew he died because nobody has any common sense. So it's like we really have to go back to the basics and the natural way of humans and let go of some of this need for tech. And I think that's what you're trying to help people discover. And I love that.
Well, thanks. Yeah, and it's ironic that I have to use the tech to send that
I
message,
know.
but and I may be cutting back my use of it even, and then because it does still affect me when it's even though it's hardwired. And um but you know, just continue to do these podcasts as long as I can, and you know,
Mhm.
and spread the message about these books. And yeah, and just I think more and more people are waking up to
Yeah.
this, which is great. You know, 12 or 13 years ago when this first happened to me, I got a lot of blank looks and people thinking I was nuts. And now I'm barely getting any pushback about it at all, actually.
Yeah.
And like people are more willing to listen. And of course, it's almost too late and we're in an oversaturated environment. But the bright side of that is that more and more people are becoming electrosensitive, and that means that they're more willing to listen and maybe willing to try to do something else.
Yeah, for sure. And so to that, like if people do want to connect with you somehow, and I know you even mentioned maybe you're thinking about doing some consultations so that you can help people mitigate their environment a little bit. Where can people find you? I know you have a Substack and an author page. We'll try to link that in the show notes, but what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, so either through, you can subscribe to the Substack, which is free, or
Mhm.
yeah, the definitely check out my books on Amazon, and you'll have
Yeah.
the link to the author page. I have two books on the subject, and soon to be a third. And yeah, and then as far as consultations, if a person feels like they have more questions, and well, I'm not, by the way, not an EMF consultant. I can give basic advice, but you would need to hire somebody to mitigate your home. I can't really do that, but I can
Mhm.
help with a lot of other things like lifestyle and, and maybe some basic dietary or herbal advice, but and just psychological, like how to talk to your friends and family about it, or just some moral support. If somebody wants to talk to me, I'm definitely willing to do consultations. And I think I'm going to try out and I could either use Facebook or Zoom for that. Um, but I think I want to try out your value for value system of just um, the client decides what they want to pay.
Yeah.
And yeah, so reach out to me by email, dandelion, like the plant,
Hmm.
109 at gmail.com.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing is like when you're passionate about helping people and you're passionate because you've been through it, it's like it's hard for you to charge for something because in a perfect world we'd do it for free, right? We just like, yeah,
Yeah,
come talk to me and I'll tell you everything I know because you're so passionate about it. So I get that
yeah,
100%. That's why I kind of went with the pay what you can
yeah.
way of
And I mean, I
charging.
have
Yeah.
exactly. And I mean, because it is slightly painful for me to be on it and I have to get someone else to turn on the Wi-Fi to
Yeah.
begin. So I have to charge something,
Yeah.
but like pay as you can. And if someone actually is living in a cave, I'd probably just talk to them for free,
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but um,
No, that's great, Julia. You've got so much that people can glean from. So I just want to keep pushing forward what you're doing and getting your information out there. And you guys that are listening, go check out her books. If nothing else, she's funny. She's got some great tips and advice in there, and her books keep you highly entertained. I know once I started picking it up and reading it, I couldn't put it down. I was like in my little cold tub reading for like hours, and my daughter's like, "Mom, are you gonna cook dinner soon?" And I'm like, "Yeah, just a second."
that's
So,
awesome.
yeah, so I really enjoyed it. But thank you so much for your time today. We'll go and get back into nature and get off of these devices for now, but I really appreciate you doing this with me and taking the time.
Yeah, thank you, Jodelle. It's been fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. So, hopefully we'll get to do it again.
Yeah.
So recently I went to a coffee shop and paid $5 for a cup of coffee. Not a latte, not a mocha, not anything fancy, just a $5 cup of drip coffee. Everything is getting so expensive, but I don't think getting your health goals and your questions answered about your health should be. That's why for almost a year now, I've been working on a pay what you can scale. That means you get to decide, do you want 30 minutes? Do you want an hour with a nutritionist? You get to pay what you want at that rate and get your questions answered. Your health should not be put on the back burner because you can't afford to address it in this system we're living in. There's a lot affecting people's health that's not just diet and exercise. We have environmental toxins, we have glyphosate in the water, we've got EMF technology getting stronger day by day. A lot of people are tired all the time. They're not feeling well, their guts hurting, their migraines, their headaches are getting worse. I want to be a nutritionist that helps you address these concerns, but I don't think you have to spend a small fortune doing it. So, when you work with me, you pay what you want. That means we set up a free 15-minute discovery call to see if I'm a good fit for you. And then you get to pay what you want, set the time that you want, set the frequency that you want. Maybe you just want a one-time consult. That's fine. Maybe you want 6 weeks of a call every week. That's fine too. Maybe you can't even find the time to have a call and you just want email support. We can work on that too. Whatever you need me to be, that's what I am for you. I'm a friend, I'm a cheerleader, I'm a coach, I'm a nutritionist, I'm a lifestylist. You get to decide what you need, when you need it, and I'll be there for you. So to get that free 15-minute discovery call, visit my website, meetbodyandsoul.com, or you can email me directly, getfitwithjodelle@gmail.com. That's GETFITWITHJODELLE@gmail.com. And I look forward to working with you and allowing you to have the freedom to pay what you can afford to get your questions answered.